Hey VC, thanks for stopping by my channel. This is Tony. I really appreciate it. If you just stumbled on based on the great title that I've come up with, that's great. If you're a subscriber, maybe I got into your feed, but for whatever reason, thank you. And if you like this video and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And please like. If you have subscribed, I really appreciate that. I say that in every video. It's really an honor that you actually subscribe to this, very small channel on YouTube. So we're in Studio E. Elvis is lit. Elvis is here, and what I'm going to talk about is some of the response videos to these articles that came up the last 3 or 4 weeks, and people have been sending me, you should do a talk about this, but a lot of great VCers beat me to it. And there's 2 articles. One is that vinyl sales are plummeting, vinyl sales are slumping, and the other one is vinyl's too expensive, vinyl records are too expensive. So I'm going to address are vinyl records too expensive in this video. And if you wait to the end, I'm going to add a little caveat that no one really has talked about on some of these other channels that talked about what is causing some of the price increases to vinyl. And we're used to it, but we're not used to it with buying records. As far as I'm not, because I bought records during the heyday. And I'm going to talk about records prices during the heyday of records, which is mid-70s to mid-80s, around that 10-year period when millions and millions of records were selling. So people are saying records are too expensive, $40, $50 are too expensive. But I'm saying they're not. It's the equivalent of what we paid back in the day. And I'll give you another example. I've always told this to people. Gas prices today at $3.50 a gallon, $3 a gallon, whatever you're paying for regular, is probably the equivalent to what we paid in 1975 when gas was maybe 60 cents a gallon. It went up slightly. And I'm saying that just based on inflation. 50 cents back then is about $6, $7 today. And don't forget, the cars that we had in the 70s were basically gas guzzlers. If you had a muscle car, you were getting 6 or 7 miles to the gallon. If you had a Caddy, you were getting 8 miles to the gallon. I had a big Eldorado, 77 Eldorado I bought. Not in 77, I bought it later. A great car. I don't have it anymore. I wish I did. But that car got 8 or 10 miles to the gallon. So I kind of got rid of that car because that gas was up to $4 a gallon. It would cost you a lot of money to fill that 30-gallon tank or whatever it was and not go anywhere with 30 gallons of gas. It was like having an RV. It's like it was a boat, right? So I tell that to people when they say gas is too expensive. I said, it's not really. I said, unless you had a Datsun or a small, MG back in the day in the 70s, and you were getting 25 to 30 miles a gallon, gas was a lot more expensive than it is today. And that's the same with vinyl. And I broke it down. Now, according to the internet, now I proved that AI could be wrong because I did a video which I'm going to link to this page probably about the dangers of AI. But this is from a 1978 article, or about 1978 vinyl. Vinyl records were more expensive than any other time, according to RIAA, since it began tracking in 1973, tracking sales. The average price of a record in 1978 was $7.32, and I'm going to go into some specifics. Today, that $72 equals about $50-ish. Okay, and the average album sale in 2021 cost about $25, $26. Okay, so later on in the video, as we stick around, I'm going to add some other factors that I believe is costing psychologically that you feel that records are more expensive than they were back in the day. So we're going to start out with a few records, and I have some notes here. Now, this is a first press of Revolver, and I believe this is the stereo. So the stereo Revolver was about $4.98 back in, that's the list price. I'm going off a list price. Back in the day, records had list prices on the spine. Most big labels, Columbia, Capitol, things like that, they had list prices. So you could tell the list price. The list prices were typically adjusted from different stores. They were discounted, but a lot weren't. So I'm going with just the list price, and I'm going to break it down, and I don't want to take up too much time in this video. So in 1966, the mono version of this record was $3.98. Now in today's inflationary adjustment, $3.98 equals $38.78. So this record today is probably, if you buy a copy from Target or Amazon or whatever, it's probably about $30. The stereo copy, here's the mono copy. I just brought them both out. There's the back. Okay, so the mono copy of, the mono copy of that record was $4.98. That was the stereo copy of that record was $4.98. That equals about $48 in today's money. So you can see where I'm going with this. Now here's a record. I couldn't really find the list price on this. This is a classic record. If you don't have it, please find it. There's stereo and mono. Sinatra's The Sands with the great Count Basie, and it was orchestra conducted by Quincy Jones, the late great Quincy Jones. Actually, it's the late great trio, right? Now, I just took a guess. I probably made this too high, but I thought this might be a $9.98 list because it was a double stereo. So a double 66 $9.98 price equals $97 today in 1966. So you do the math. VINYLRECORDNOMICS, right? Now this is a 1970. I just did a short on this, so I had it out. 1970, Motown, the Supremes, and the Four Tops, the Magnificent Seven. Okay, so you have 3 Supremes, 4 Four Tops, at 7. Now, I have a price on here for $3 that I probably paid a buck for this. But this is a beautiful album. It's got a nice little die cut, right? So this album was a $3.98 list in 1970. That equals $32.98 today. Okay, here's another one. A great record, a double record. But this has the list price on the spine. So I was able to determine the list price right away. If you look at these early reprise, a lot of them had list prices, Columbia especially, Capitol especially. So this list price is $6.98. Now $6.98 in 1972 is equal to $50 or so today, right? $50, 1972. This is a great record if you don't have it. This is an RL. This is how I got turned on to Climax Blues Band. This record was recorded live during a radio broadcast, NEW-FM in New York, if anybody's from the New York metropolitan area. This was recorded live at the Academy of Music, New York City, broadcast live on WNEW New York. And this Climax Blues Band is just a fantastic record. It's turned me on to Climax Blues. And I think this and Sense of Direction are my favorites. And this is an RL. But 1973, this was like a record that was basically a budget record. 1973, it was $5.98 list. So that was $42.53 today's money. And if it was a $5.98 list, you'd probably get it in a record store for $4, $4 or $5. They don't do that anymore. Stores do not discount records anymore off the list price, which is another factor why we're paying much money. It's like if they have a monopoly. They all get together and they go, we are not going to discount this record. Music Direct buys records from Chad, from Analog Productions or Acoustic Sounds. They are not going to discount that record. Chad says you have to sell it for what I sell it for, and you can't discount it. The In-Groove buys records from Chad. I don't think he's allowed to discount those records. I'm not sure, but I'll have to ask the great In-Groove, Mike from the In-Groove. Now here's another one. Now this is 1973 $6.98 list. It's on the side. This is the original Houses of the Holy. You can see I have the shrink here. Now someone put a price on this for $2, so I probably bought this used, right? This is an original original hype, which is very cool. Now in 1973, 698, 5271. And some of these prices may blur because I used different calculators to get a solid medium on what these prices mean. Now this is another great album. This is 1975. This was a 698 list, and 698 is on the side. So when you're at record stores or used shops or yard sales or whatever, you could see certain companies put the list price, and that 0698 was the actual list price. And like I said, the big chains maybe weren't discounting, but the smaller record stores were discounting records. And I remember in my store, my boss from Vogel's, the late great Jay and Cy Vogel, they would actually get deals from the distributors. For instance, they would buy 25 of, say, Piano Man at probably 698 list, the Billy Joel classic, and we probably sold thousands a week. So that's a factor that you have to call into play, right? And he would buy 25 in a box, and the distributor would throw in one free. So it would be 25 in one, or 50 in three. So those 3 records were pure profit for him. And believe me, when you're selling thousands of records a week, that's $6,000 or whatever coming in. So that's just the case. So this was a 998 list, 1975, and that is the equivalent to about $41 today, Chicago. Now here's a nice one which I just wanted to show off. The great Boston, self-titled, first Boston album, and The Shrink, as you can see here, shown it many times. Now this record was a 698 list, 1976, equivalent to about $38 today. So about what you pay today for this record, non-audiophile. These are, I'm quoting basically non-audiophile prices today. Of course, if you get into a one-step or a UHQR or some of these, specially crafted records with a very limited number, you're going to spend more. But these are basically normal pressings. This would be about $40 today. Here's another great one. And Rumors. Rumors is when Reprise, Warner, whatever company it was, decided to raise the list price. This was 77. So prior to this, records were selling for $6.98. Because of the strong sales of Fleetwood Mac, which was probably a $6.98, this went to $7.98. So the distributors and the companies got more money for the record, $7.98. That was equivalent to about $41 today. And you could see we discounted it at the record store. So this was an $8 record, and we basically discounted it $3. That's significant. Just imagine today that if you bought a record from one of these big companies and the list price was $40, but they were selling it for $23 or $20 or $22, $25. That'd be, wow, that's great, but they're not doing that anymore. Okay, why? They have expenses. That's a whole different deal. Now, here's another one, 77, right? This is a 1298 list. This record sold millions. 1298 record, okay? Saturday Night Fever. Broke all records, probably was the biggest selling record at that particular time. Before, of course, Thriller. We have Fleetwood Mac. We have Eagles' Greatest Hits, all-time gate crashers, right? So this record in 1977, was 1298 list, okay? It's a double record. $67.61 today. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a standard double record. So records today really aren't that far off, right? Here's another one. This is the great soundtrack, sold millions right out of the gate. This was a 1298 list in 1978. Today, $63, $64 inflation, depending on what inflation calculator you use. All right. So 1298 list double record, 1978, 62.84. Okay, the first Cars record, okay? First Cars record debuted in 78 was a $6.98 list price. Because this is a different Electra Atlantic WIA, Asylum, was different from Warner. Warner raised their list price. This particular record was a debut record. The list price wasn't raised yet. So this was still $6.98. And I believe it's on the spine. That's where I got it from. So this record, Red Electra, original pressing, $6.98, equivalent of $38.76. Again, these are rough estimates based on different inflation calculators. I used two of them to go back and forth. Now, here's the beautiful Rhino copy that I picked up when I talked about it. I said this is going to be a definite sellout. This record sold out in weeks. It was $40 new, which is a bargain because the original was selling for $40 back in the day, and it wasn't an audiophile pressing, okay? So, and if you wait, I'm going to give you some more information on why other factors have contributed to our perception that prices are higher. Okay, now, I'm coming to the end, so you can all breathe easy. Now, this is when another leap, and it's always Fleetwood Mac. I remember it being in the store. It was always Fleetwood Mac would push the envelope. Now, most double records were $12.98, $13.98. This is a double record Tusk. This is a great record coming off of Rumors, coming off of Fleetwood Mac, right? This is a double, very elaborate package. The inner sleeves are hard cardboard. I think there's 4 inner sleeves. I'm not going to open this. This still has shrink on it. But anyway, in 1979, when this was released, it was a $15.98 list. Now, hold on to your seats. That's equivalent today to $64.98. Notice my high-tech graphics, okay? $69.48 because they raised the price because they thought they could get it because it was Fleetwood Mac. Now, another double album would have came out concurrently with this or consecutive to this or prior to this in 78. The list price was probably going to be still $13.98. But because it was Fleetwood Mac, yeah, we can move the price up. It's just VINYLRECORDNOMICS, right? Before it was a thing. Now, that being said, that proves scientifically using inflation that the price of records today are really not far off. They're basically the same or even cheaper. Now, psychologically, it hits home because I know I buy 6 records, $200, $300. I go, I'm an older guy, so psychologically, that's a lot of money. And I could see it. And when I was buying records for $5, that's equivalent to $40 today. I was living at home. I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to buy food. Basically have my part-time job, making $3 an hour or whatever, $4 an hour. I was in college or whatever. So I had more disposable income. Today, kids are on their own. They can't even afford an apartment. Apartment's $2,000, $1,000 for a 1-bedroom maybe or more. So the money is not there to buy, things like records. Plus you have free records on streaming. You go to YouTube, you can listen to an album. So it's not that tangible thing that we have. Of course, when you're in the hobby, you have to own it. But my point is that expense-wise, basically the same money price because everything, let's face it, has gone up. I'm wearing this jacket from 78. Now, I bought this jacket, I forget what it cost, but say it costs $35, $40. It's leather, right? It's like Ghostbusters. So in the 80s, maybe, what's that worth today? $300. I wouldn't buy this jacket today for $400 based on inflation. But back then I did it. So it's a perception thing as well. Now, there's other factors that are contributing to the price of records that you may not even think about. We're buying most of our records online, so you have to pay shipping. So when you buy a record from Music Direct, a certain amount, it's free shipping. You buy a record from Chad, Acoustic Sounds, a certain amount is free shipping. But before that amount, you're paying just an average. Say you're paying $10 to ship a record. So $10 plus the $50 plus the sales tax, which has increased since the 70s. I'm not even sure if there was a sales tax in most states. There definitely wasn't a sales tax online unless you had a brick and mortar store in that particular state. So you're paying shipping, you're paying tax, and you're paying interest on your credit card for 8%, 10%, 12%, especially if you don't pay your credit card off. So there's all these factors that make a record today more expensive. And the grand finale of why records aren't cheaper than they are, and they could be, we're not selling 40 million copies of the new pressed Thriller album anymore. We're not selling 20 copies of Rumors anymore. When a manufacturer is making, break it down, is making 2 million copies of a record, that price is reduced probably at least by a third of what it would cost you if you only made 10,000 copies of that record. Same with t-shirts. If you're buying t-shirts for your club or for your baseball team, you buy 10 t-shirts, just as an analogy. You buy 10 t-shirts, they're maybe $15 each. Guy who's making the t-shirt says, well, sir, if you buy 50 t-shirts, I'll sell them to you for $8 each. Okay, so you could see my point where today they just printed, or I think it was One Step, MoFi just did 40,000 copies of Thriller at $99 each or $125 each. Now, it's not a lot of money because, like I said, back in the day that record was expensive based on a single record. Now it's a One Step. It's gone through a lot of different expensive phases, packaging and stuff. But they're not even sold out yet. So if MoFi could have made 1 million of those records, they could have cut that price in half, but they couldn't make 1 million of those records because that record would be sitting there for 1 million years. So it's a big sphere of catch-22 where everything has gone up. Plus there's some added factors to the cost of vinyl. Vinyl's more heavier now. If you want a 180 gram vinyl, it's almost a 50th percentage weight-wise more than a regular record, so it costs more to ship. It costs to ship something on eBay, a single record without the box, which the box is about $1, right? It's $4.98 media. So 5 years ago, that was maybe $3 to ship that record. So everything is going up, but the price of records basically overall have remained relatively stable based on inflation. So I hope you like this video. Please subscribe, please like and whatever. So, and let me know what you think. I think this is an important discussion. And, of course, the record companies could do better. But like I said, they have expenses. They're not printing as many to bring that price down that they can because they're not going to sell. So keep rocking, and we'll see you soon. Ciao.